There are principles that I think that every young aspiring entrepreneur should know. I was invited this week to a local high school to give a speech about what is it to be an entrepreneur. And I was thinking to give this presentation from the point of view of what 19-year-old me would have benefited from hearing from what is it to give, or what is it to be an entrepreneur and to become an entrepreneur. So I prepared this presentation to give some guiding principles for anyone who is an aspiring young entrepreneur or wants to become one. So a little bit about my own background. This is from 2016 when I had just graduated from high school, and my own dream was to become a doctor. And the actual thing that I was interested in was basically the human mind, and not so much about taking care of diseases and wounds, etc. So I thought that, maybe psychiatry could be something for me. But in Finland, where I'm living, and it takes more than 10 years to become a psychiatrist in most of the cases. So I still decided to go for the exam to apply for the medical school. I didn't get in, and I was satisfied. I thought, okay, I've tried it. Now I'm going to move on to something else. As time went by, I applied for the university to study social sciences. And from that, I became interested in to learn Chinese language and culture. And I thought to myself, before deciding to start learning Mandarin and culture, I thought, during my bachelor's degree, it would be great to learn a new language and to go on site to learn it. So in 5 years from now, if I could just pick any language from the shelf and just learn it instantly without any of the challenges that would be, which would be a part of learning that language, which language would I choose? And I thought, learning Mandarin would be actually great. So I decided to then go after that. There just happened to be an exchange program to Chengdu, and so I applied to it. And then in 2019 autumn, I went to Chengdu, and here's a picture of it. Me and my buddy visiting a panda zoo. And during that time, I became very interested in Chinese language and culture. In fact, I wanted to apply for a master's degree in Shanghai to complete a master's degree in business or in economics entirely in Mandarin. And to do that, I would have had to pass HSK 5, which was at the time the second most difficult Mandarin Mandarin proficiency exam. And I took the exam, and I just came below the score line. I was going to retake the exam. I had an entire year to do that, but I thought that this vocabulary learning is the hardest part, and it's driving me crazy. There has to be a better way to learn this vocabulary. And so I began digging. I already had done a very thorough analysis of all the learning methods out there, but I needed to find something that is better than simply driving through than just doing flashcards and writing diaries and doing rote learning. And I came across something that was basically based on decomposing the Chinese characters and creating a story for each Mandarin character. And I tried out this method, and it was amazing. I could learn 50 words per day, and I was completely sold. I thought, this is the way, this is the method. But there was a catch. I had to come up with all of the stories myself. So I thought, coming up with, each of the character or word requires me to at least do 4 stories per word because of the decomposition. So for 2,500 words, roughly that's 10,000 stories. So I thought that might be a little bit too much. But I thought, if somebody had done this for me, I would definitely pay for that, because I want to go to Shanghai and to complete that master's degree. And so I thought, has anyone done that actually? And so I did some research and I found out, well, does this work? So I thought, okay, so stories plus a visual image, that would really be the killer. So I did an experiment with recruiting 30 people, and surely enough, compared to the traditional way of learning Mandarin vocabulary, which is just writing the characters over and over again, and compared to my PowerPoint presentations with stick figure stories, actually my PowerPoint presentation method took less time to learn the vocabulary, and it also sticked into the memory better. So I thought, wow, this could actually be a business case. And so in 2021, I found my own startup with a buddy of mine who was able to program, and then that's what we did. We begun our own business and started to develop that. So fast forward from 2021 to 2025, well, I've learned a lot of what it actually takes to build, in this case, an IT startup. And there's been many successes and mistakes on the way. I think that more mistakes, but fortunately enough, I've been able to learn from those. Here's one picture that is very memorable for me from September 2024, going to Shanghai to this Estron business competition to pitch our startup idea in front of a big crowd. It was amazing. It was great. So basically what I was thinking for this presentation is that what would be the guiding principles for somebody who is about to embark on their startup or just entrepreneurial journey. So what would, and in this case it would really be the 19-year-old me to whom I would be talking. So what type of advice would I give to that 19-year-old me? So I crafted 3 principles. The first one is having initiative and being resourceful. So what does this exactly mean? Well, one of the greatest business stories that I can come up with is about the Wright brothers. So the brothers who built the very first airplane. So the brothers didn't have any university. They didn't have a university. They didn't have university level education, not at least the formal type for engineering. In fact, only the other of the brothers was able to complete his high school degree. So how is it possible that these 2 brothers with no university degrees and only 1 high school degree were able to build the first working airplane? At the same time when they were building their first airplane, there was also another university professor who had 10 times the resource, well, basically 10 times the amount of resources at his disposal to build an airplane, and the Wright brothers actually succeeded before him. So I think that this story has some key insights that I find very, very good. So the Wright brothers really took their initiative and resourcefulness to another level. They built their own, they established their own bike shop. So in the beginning of the 20th century, bicycles were a new popular innovation, and everyone were having their own bikes. So they established their own bike shop. They even built some own models of their own, and it became a success. So because the business was a success and they were actually very interested in the idea of building the first airplane, they decided to hire a professional manager to run their bike shop for them. So they had a reliable source of income. And then they could really delve into their dream of building the airplane. The brothers, they got help from the Smithsonian Institute. On the way, they happened to find out that some basic assumptions of aerodynamics didn't hold, so they had to build their own wind tunnel and do calculations to actually find out some correct estimates of aerodynamics. Anyway, their entire journey took many years before they really succeeded to reach this stage, which we can see in this picture. The first successful flight, it only took a couple of seconds, but then they just took it further and further to 10 seconds, 1 to a minute, to 10 minutes, to tens of minutes. And all of this included many trials and errors. But anyway, just think about what two brothers in the 20th century could achieve on their own with their initiative and resourcefulness. The first functioning airplane. Well, of course, there's so much more also included into that, but I think that this really highlights the power of initiative and resourcefulness. If you would want to study more about this topic, I would highly recommend this book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It certainly made a great impact into my young mind when I read it when I was 23 years old. So, high recommendation. Number 2, know yourself and your time usage. So here's a question for you. What's your daily screen time? When I asked this from the high school students, the answers ranged from 5 hours to 8 hours. My own screen time usage is somewhere between, I'd say roughly 3 hours per week. So why am I asking this? Well, nowadays, when everyone has a smartphone more or less, the temptation to actually to spend your time mindlessly scrolling your phone is quite huge. Even for myself, my own guilty pleasure is to scroll Instagram Reels just to relax. But I'm also very much aware of how much time can just go into scrolling. So where am I getting at this or with this? If you have a goal, for example, of becoming an entrepreneur, that's a huge project. So our alignment with our dreams and our actual time usage isn't perfect in anyone's case, but it can always be made better. So what do you actually want to what do you want to reach, and what are those steps that will take you there? That should really be in sync with how you're actually using your time. So let's talk about something related to this. So I think that it's very important, actually Stephen Covey in the book that I just mentioned makes this point, which is that we have different roles in our lives. So basically our identity is built of the different roles that we have in our life. So for example, myself, I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a cousin, I'm a partner, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an athlete, I'm a Mandarin student, and I'm a content creator. But as life has its dynamics, as life evolves, it can sometimes happen that one role can start to take ground more and more from the other roles that we have because of, well, a lot of work pressure, for example, of neglect, of, well, many things. So then basically what can happen is that one single role can become very dominant, and basically our whole identity becomes identified with that role. And that's not what we really want here, is it? What we really want is a balanced life where we're able to take care of all of the roles in our life. Not really meaning that we are spending equal amounts of time in each role, but that none get neglected and all get their proper attention. We want to be, for example, it could be that you want to be a successful entrepreneur, but you also want to be a loving spouse, a parent, or a successful athlete, or maybe an artist. It depends on you, but we want to avoid what's happening here. Well, how do we do that? There's a way that has been really helpful for me, for example. So first, thinking about where do you want to see yourself in the very far future? Well, you could go as far as 12 years, you could go even longer. Well, the further down the road you go, the bigger risk it becomes that actually those goals won't happen. But let's just now, for the argument's sake, from 12 years from now, where would you want to see yourself? Write it down very clearly. It doesn't have to be a list of hundreds of points. That would be unmanageable. But let's say even just 5 points. What meaningful, realistic, yet challenging things, exciting things, would you want to see in 12 years from now, where you would want to see yourself? Then distill out of those the 3 to 5 year goal, then your 90-day goals, your 1 week goals, and your daily goals. So as you can see, taking it from all the way from where do you want to see yourself into the far future, you can distill it down all the way to what am I doing today that is helping me to take closer to those long-term goals. There's one very good book about this subject, which is called The 12-Week Year, that has been really helpful for me. So do check it out if you want to. It's got really great topics, but basically the core message of the book boils down to this methodology. Then number 3, and this is especially for aspiring entrepreneurs, know the growth stages of your business. So another question, you have an app idea for a new app. How do you execute it? So would you go and just start to build the app immediately and start to sell it to people? Or would you first go and raise funding? Or would you start hiring people? What would you do? How would you execute this whole plan? So in my own case, I was very fortunate to be able to participate in 2 business programs, 3 actually. And one of the questions that I had in my mind that I always would ask from the program organizers were, what type of books do they suggest? And the reason for that was that because I'm a rookie, I was a beginner, so one of the ways to really fast forward to hasten my learning would be to read as much as I could of the subjects that I was managing at hand. And one of the things that struck me when I was reading a lot of startup literature basically was that many of the books basically dealt into the success stories, and from those you could then distill some tips of what to do. But none of the books really dealt into, well, when you have an idea, how do you build it all the way to the very scaling stage, to the final stages of the startup? How does the life cycle of a startup look like actually? And that was a hard question. I managed to come across a couple of books, not many, but a couple of books that really dealt into this subject. The best one out there that I was able to come across was Running Lean by Ash Maurya. There were also Steve Blank's Startup Owner's Manual and his other book, The Road to Epiphany. But this Ash Maurya's book, I think, was the clearest and the most actionable one. Now, of course, for each of the stages, it's good to also strengthen them with other books, but basically I wanted to present here the most essential principles from that book. So let's think about a house for a moment. So if you would go and build a house, how would you go about it? So you maybe wouldn't be beginning to build the windows and maybe the steps from the get-go, but first you would select the location, lay the foundation, then start to build the rest of the building from bottom up, I think. I'm not an architect nor a building engineer, but there are those prudent things to do, and I think that this also applies to business. So in Ash Maurya's book, he begins by saying that it's first great to do this thought experiment, which is a so-called Fermi estimate. So it's just a very simple estimate that you can do in 20 minutes to estimate whether your business could work on paper. So you first begin by defining what's the minimum success criteria that you want to have. So in other words, let's say the annual revenue goal that you would want to have. Let's say that would be something like 200,000 euros per year. Then the price of your product or your service, let's say it's 50 euros. The customer acquisition cost would be maybe 15 euros. Your revenue from that would be, roughly speaking, 35 euros. So then you can calculate from the revenue and the annual revenue goal how many customers you need annually. And from that you can distill the monthly need for customers. And then if you just estimate what's the customer conversion rate. So let's say that you are, for example, running Google Ads campaign, then the number of people who arrive to your website and then actually then become your customers. Let's say that that would be, roughly speaking, 1%. So from there you can estimate how many people or how large should the customer pool be for you to actually reach your goal. So with this simple calculation you can see that, okay, there should be at least these many people. Well, for example, in my case, if I would want to build a Mandarin teaching app or platform, I do know that if I'm targeting second language students, and there's, roughly speaking, 20 million second language Mandarin students globally, then I can see that, okay, roughly speaking, 600,000 compared to 20 million. I think that I can get my customers from that pool. So great, now we can move forward. Lean Canvas. So Lean Canvas is a snapshot or a summary of your entire business. So one of the most crucial things to understand when building startups is that your solution or service isn't the product per se. Your whole business is the product that you're developing. So for many people, the solution, so for example, the app is what they are building, but no, it's the entire business. And the most important thing actually is to understand the customer's problem. Well, anyway, so the first thing that you want to do is to define your customer segment very clearly. For this part, I would give a very strong shout out to Alex Hormoz's $100 million offers. I think he makes a very great point here for how to assess your market, and from that also understanding your customer's profile. You have a customer segment with the early adapters, who could the first people be who really needs your product or service. Then the problem, what are they exactly facing, what's the pain, and what are they currently using to solve that pain. Then your unique value proposition. So for example, in our case, it could be a guarantee of passing their HSK level after 6 months of study with only 3 hours of weekly study, for example. Then the actual solution, it could be, for example, a website, so whatever it is. In our case, it could be a website that offers a way of studying the Mandarin vocabulary than any other existing alternative out there, and also perhaps complementing that with a study strategy. Then the channels, how are you going to reach your customers? So for example, it could be Google Ads or social media ads. Your revenue streams, what is exactly your product's revenue? Your cost structure, and from there you can count the break-even point. How many customers do you need? Your key metrics, what are you tracking? For example, ad clicks, site visits. Your unfair advantage, how are you exactly going to defend your business? What is going to ensure that you are actually going to succeed? And then this one is my own addition, your company vision, or your why. Why are you exactly doing this? Do you want to actually improve the way that people are learning Mandarin? Is it something else? Is it that you want to become rich? Whatever it is, just be very honest with yourself, because that's the most fundamental factor that is driving your business forward from within. So be very clear and honest with that, whatever it is. Finally, the traction roadmap. Now you know that your business is working in numbers. Now you have a summary of your entire business idea. So then the traction roadmap, what it is that it lays out the different phases in the business develop well in the progress of the business. So in the traction roadmap, there is on the x-axis the months, and then on the y-axis the number of customers. And then very roughly speaking, the progress should look like something like this. This is not a perfect curve. There is not the market saturation mentioned there, but this serves the purpose of our presentation here. So there are 4 important stages. So in the very beginning, you have to complete a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, but let's say 15 interviews with your potential customers. Really try to understand what their problem is. Are they basically having a great pain that is common to all of the interviewees belonging to the same population? Are they at the moment trying to solve it? Are they paying money to solve it? And that's very important, and how much? And are they still experiencing the pain if they have an existing alternative that they're at the moment paying for to solve this problem, and they're still experiencing the pain, then great, that's an opportunity. And then in this phase you can also, you will learn a lot, and you can alter your potential solution based on these insights. Then you move on to the next phase. So you have identified the problem, and you can see that there is a population of people paying money to solve it, and they are unhappy with the existing alternatives. So then you make to them a mafia offer. So an offer is good that they cannot say no. So basically you're already at this stage giving them an offer to a solution, and then you want them to pay. So ideally speaking, I cannot recall exactly now, but out of those interviewees who you had interviewed in the problem discovery phase, if you run an interview again with them, and let's say 6 or 7 out of 10 pay you on the spot, then you have a very great business opportunity at your hands. And of course you need to make sure that the numbers help. So at this stage you start actually to build the solution or the service, and then you deliver it to your initial customers. And then you keep on running your so-called customer factory, so just keeping your current customers happy and then trying to expand it by driving in more and more customers. And then you need to start automating it. So in the beginning you might be doing it manually, but you want to start automating the customer factory to grow your business. And then it takes some time to find the right way to do it, but if you do it right, then you will hit at some point the so-called product market fit, and then that's where the curve really starts to take off. And then finally comes the scaling phase where you're the most out of the market where you're currently at. So these are basically the phases of your startup. If you want to read more about this subject, here's a screenshot of the book. Highly recommend it. And as I also mentioned, you need to still also make your of those certain phases of the business also strong by reading also other literature. But I highly recommend doing it so that you read according to what your need is. This might be self-evident, but still I want to say it. Read according to your need. That's how you really make the progress go forward fast. So again, the principles are have initiative and be resourceful, know yourself and your time usage, and know your business growth stages. Here are the books, 3 books, please read them. But if I would recommend just one of these books, do read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That lays enough foundation for becoming an independent and codependent person. You being able to be by yourself and act, but then also to start working together with others. And that's really the foundation for doing anything, I'd say. There was also a very interesting article in the Finnish news quite recently about even teenagers being entrepreneurs. So that was quite mind-blowing for me, and it was great news that the entrepreneurial well, being an entrepreneur has also spread to the teenagers. So create your own work for yourself. I think that's one very good avenue in life. Well, I hope you liked that presentation. Please leave a comment if you would like to share something. That gives me an indication to keep on making videos such as these ones. Until next time, bye bye.